Hello and welcome to Books and Beer. It's wicked to see you. I'm here with James Sumner. We've got beers ready to go.
We
And
have.
yeah, there we are. Cheers,
Most
mate.
of like Coors Light. Cheers, man.
I like a Coors Light actually. Of all the I mean, I'm a bit of an ale drinker myself. I'm on a this IPA at the moment.
Oh yeah, is that like the Brewdog stuff that they have, or
Sort of. This one's by
yeah?
Co-op from Stockport, Robinson's Brewery. But
Oh,
yeah.
I'm actually in Stockport right now.
Oh, are you? Wow, I
I
didn't
can
even know
actually
that.
see. I kid you not. If I go to the window on the other side of my apartment, I can see Robinson's Brewery.
Wow. Look at that.
Oh, there you go.
Strange coincidence, the way
It
things
is.
go. You know, you couldn't write it, could you?
You couldn't, which is a problem for us if we can't do things like that. Really,
I know.
we kind of
know.
rely on the ability to do exactly that. So
Yeah. I mean, there are so many times when truth is quite literally stranger than fiction, isn't it? You know, when you think of
yeah,
this happened and this happened and this happened, of all the stories you think, and you think, if I ever wrote that, my readers would go, no, you're not having
I
that.
know it's fiction, but come on, tread the line. Well, I mean, a prime example is that is just look at the last 12 months.
Mm,
Like,
mm.
I think it was because it was kind of like March time last year, wasn't it? When the world kind of was like, hang on a minute, this is happening. Let's go. Let's all go.
You're all having too much fun.
Yeah, so I'll put paid to that. But then it got to kind of May, June, and suddenly there was all of these virus-related post-apocalyptic thrillers on Amazon. I'm like, wow, you guys wrote fast. Like, you got an 80,000 word end of the world thriller out in 2 months. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, you're right to your audience. Fair play.
That's it. Well, I suppose they had nothing else to do. They're stuck at home.
Well, this is it. All. It was that. There's only so much solitaire you can play, isn't there, really?
Yeah. I wonder how many people, and I don't know, but I wonder how many people have sort of taken up writing as a first time during these last 12 months. And actually, massive kudos to them, because it's tough. And there's never too many, is there? You know.
No, absolutely. I think there's probably been quite a few. I mean, I know because aside from writing, I work with other authors as well, and I've seen a few people come through. It's like, I've written a book, help. You know, I don't know what to do with it now, but this is what I've got. Where do I go from there? And it's kind of like, yeah, good for you, because it's not the easiest thing to do.
No.
I think if people actually understood exactly everything that's involved and how it all works, you'd be like, why do you choose that?
I know. So tell me the process of sort of writing your first book then, back in 2013, 14, you said?
Yeah, 2020, yeah, it was 20 July 2013, I think I started. It was kind of weird, really, because what it was, in the May of 2013, I was on my honeymoon, funnily enough. Divorced now, but at the time. And as you do, sat around the pool with a Kindle, and I'd had my eye on a few books, and I kind of stocked it up for the Greek Sun, and I'm sat there, and I read this book. It was called Lethal People by John Locke. It was like nothing I'd ever read before. It was just weird in the thriller genre. It was didn't follow any of the conformities at all. And afterwards, I was like, that was really good. But I was like, I could do that. That was a good book. But I knew that I could do something along them lines. So I started looking into the author, as you do. You know, you read one book, you like it, you see what else they've done. And it turned out at the time, John Locke was the first self-published author to sell 1 million copies.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that guy he published it himself. Hang on a minute. And that was where it sort of came from. So I sort of had my eye on being a writer for years, like going back to high school, many moons and many hair ago.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, I stick by that this is voluntary.
Well, this bit from here backwards is voluntary. This bit isn't.
Yeah, I've got a month thing going on, so unless I want a part to try a tuck, it's like, you know what, it's fine. But yeah, I'd always wanted to be a writer. I'd always had these ideas in my head. So reading that book kind of inspired me to sort of start putting pen to paper in a way, and I started jotting ideas down. And literally 9 weeks later, I had a 65,000 word manuscript, which, I mean, it develops and grew over time, as those things kind of naturally do. But yeah, it very much started literally because I was bored at work. The job that I had at the time, I really, really hated. So what I would do is pretend I was on the phone. I'd actually be writing chapters of my book on the company dime. And I did that for about 3.5 years before they caught on and fired me. But by that time, I'd written 5 books on their dime, so that worked out well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you now have to hold a phone just beneath your ear just to sort of get in the writing mode? You've trained your brain into such an extent.
The first 2, I was like, you had to do that, but then I started getting the next, so I got kind of the boy band headset, and I was just like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. And I literally, there was once I put somebody on hold to finish writing an action scene because I was really kind of in the moment. And I was trying to blow a car up and I couldn't concentrate because someone was complaining. So I'm like, just hang on a minute.
Do you know what? Every time I'm on hold now, I'm going to think that there's someone there planning how to,
You could be talking to the next Stephen King and you'd never know.
That's it. So I've read your first book, True Conviction. Was that one you were?
Yeah. That's the first book I ever wrote. Yeah.
Brilliant, great action adventure sort of story. Sort of got a conspiracy sort of twist to it, hasn't it? Like against the establishment sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I really liked how you've twisted the sort of generic convention of the thriller into, it's all told in the first person perspective inside Adrian Hell, which is an incredible protagonist name, by the way, as well.
Thanks.
All inside his head, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I wanted to do something. I didn't want to do just what everybody else is doing because everybody else is doing that. The whole point is you find your market, but then you put your own kind of unique take on it. And one thing, I've always kind of liked stories about assassins and things like that. Films like John Wick, for example. Which, as a side note, somebody actually commented once on one of my adverts and said, "Oh, this is just a John Wick clone." I was like, check your dates, sunshine. I did it first. I'm not suggesting Keanu Reeves copied my books, but chronologically, my book was out before John Wick was. So you do the math. But no, I wanted to do something a bit different. And I know the first person genre has always appealed to me because I find it interesting knowing what people are thinking and doing and why they're doing it. And that typically was only in kind of young adult books. Things like The Hunger Games. And what was the other one, Divergent and things like that. That was all told through the first person to connect to a younger audience, which makes perfect sense. But then I thought, well, that doesn't mean that any other audience doesn't want to know more about that character. So to me, and I've always stood by this, to get a good story, you've got to have the characters. The story's secondary because if people don't like the character, they're never going to care about what they're doing. So I wanted to make a character that was a little bit different, a little bit out there, but someone that you could relate to. And being a professional killer, he's not somebody you immediately want to be friends with. But telling the story through his eyes and in real time, so it's first person, but it's present tense. So, he'll be driving down and he starts getting, if he's in the car chase and there's gunfights, he's suddenly going, oh crap, there's a bullet. And you're there ducking with him because it's happening at the time. But you're seeing his reaction, and his reaction is, oh crap, someone's shooting at me. So, and that kind of helped with the appeal, I think, because it was realistic. The guy gets the hell beaten out of him, no pun intended. He's not the indestructible hero that you tend to find, and that's what I wanted. And yeah, it seemed to appeal to the readers, which is great.
Yeah, it's a real good twist, and I really enjoy that actually when an author takes sort of a convention of a genre and twists it or plays with it slightly. Let's jump over to the comments really quickly and see who's joining us for the chat today. We've got Alison. Hello, Alison. How are you doing? What are you drinking? Alison's a real ale fan like myself, so maybe she'll have something from the Stockport brewery as well.
In Stockport, we do hats and brews. That's about
hats and brews. Oh, Steve Moore's in, a mutual friend of ours. All right, lads. Nice to see you both dress up for the occasion. Yeah, clean jumper, this Steve as well.
This is my formal T-shirt. I will have you know, Steve.
He shook it off. He shook the dust off it before he came on the call.
The last podcast we did,
yeah. Yeah. And Anja has joined us as well and says hi there. If you were joining us, do jump in and say hello in the comments. Should you want to, you can also watch silently. If you want, that's fine too. Be aware this is streamed in 3 different places. So if you don't see any comments where you are, it doesn't mean you're watching on your own, because it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and it's on Twitter. Andrew M has just jumped in and says hi, Luke and James. He's on YouTube, so there we go. Hello, how you doing? So 9 weeks for a first novel, for the first draft. That's a pretty... it takes me about 9 weeks now, and I'm, not as experienced as you. I've been writing about 2 years since I published the first one, but yeah, that's a good effort.
Yeah, it was. I think the situation helped because, like I say, I was kind of doing it on the company dime, and But it was in a way it kind of forced me to write because I was in a routine of sort of nip in, do a few lines. Oh, I've got
Right,
to
yeah.
what have you. So that was over the course of the day. I would do maybe 4,000 words a day. Weirdly, when I went full time, which was I want to say June 2016, my productivity dropped significantly. And it would actually take me 3 or 4 months to do one book because I was then doing everything else, you know, all the boring marketing and things. I've kind of got back into a bit of a swing of it now. I'm about to start my 4th book in 12 months, which is pretty good going for me. So yeah,
that is good.
Once you get in the flow of it, though, I think they call it the flow state, don't they? Where you just kind of zero in, and once you get into that routine and you know what you're doing, it's in terms of the book, it does tend to come a little bit easy with time. So yeah, I'm averaging 7 or 8 weeks per draft now, which is good.
I think that's probably where I am. This is my 5th week on Riga, which is my new book, and I'm probably 1 week away from a complete first draft. So I think it'll be 6 weeks, which I think will be my quickest yet. I'm looking at about. I'd like to do 4 a year. I think 4 books a year is a good place to be. I think any more than that for me, and it would be too like gritting your teeth and sort of you know.
Sort of too regimented. Do you? I try and write 4, but publish 3 a year, and then I've kind of got 1 in hand for the start of the next year and carry on. So yeah, with a bit of luck, this will be the 3rd book of the year that I'm writing. So yeah, I've got 1 more planned for October.
Oh wow, cool.
And then maybe I'll take a week off and treat myself.
I know, but this is the thing as well. Like I'm thinking at the moment, I really should have some time off, you know. But when you love what you do, it is its own reward to an extent, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know a lot of authors have sort of said it's difficult when you make that leap from what's your hobby or your hobby becoming your job.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer something that you can just kind of enjoy and do in your own time, because your own time needs to be what you do your hobbies in, but you're now doing your job in your own time, and you kind of blur those lines a little bit. So that's a bit of an adjustment, I think. But yeah, it is difficult because if you, like you say, you enjoy what you do, you just, you know, you want to get up and do it all day, every day, and that's burnout and bad writing waiting to happen, unfortunately.
That's it. But has your process of writing changed, or do you just sit down and the words come out? Do you have a plan before you go? Do you have an idea where the story's? You know, people come in different ways, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, yeah, my process has changed over the years. I'm reluctant to say it's because I've matured. I can tell you now that ain't the case. However, the book that I'm about to start writing will be my 20th. Which is, I'm really, when I figured that out, I was like, holy cow, 20 books, that's crazy. Probably the first 12 or 13, I literally made them up as I went along. I don't know how they've ended up coherent and exciting, because I literally had a blank page and like, okay, now what? And I just kind of went with it. But the more recent ones, I've actually started, I use a website, Trello.
Oh, yeah.
Like a storyboard thing. And I've actually started doing just like 200-300 word summaries of every chapter of the book, start to finish. And I found that since I now know what's going to happen in the chapter before I try and write it, it tends to be easier to write, which has probably helped me get through the books a lot quicker. So in that respect, yeah, the process has changed, and it's just that the shift in mindset which comes with, you know, time and experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think also having some plan before you go stops you writing yourself into really awkward situations, doesn't it? You know, you write yourself into a position where all your characters' backs are against the wall and they've got no weapons and there's loads of people coming at them from all angles and some divine intervention is going to happen to save them, but you've got no idea what it is. And then you realise, no, I've just put them in a really stupid situation that they shouldn't be in the first place.
Yeah, so I mean that's happened to me. The 7th book in the Adrian Hell series is called Thicker Than Blood, and that book actually won a couple of literary awards in 2017, which is really good. Yeah, I kind of submitted it as I was bored one day. I was like, oh, I'll give it a go, and it ended up winning everything, which is great. And there was a particular chapter in that book, and I won't say what happens in case spoilers or whatever, but I wrote the same chapter 8 times, and 8 different things happened and nothing happened afterwards. I was writing myself into that corner.
Yeah.
And then I was literally sitting down. It was about 5 in the morning, and I was sat down in my kitchen, and I suddenly thought, what if I kill that guy? And I wrote the chapter for the 9th time, but ended up killing a character off. And suddenly I did 20,000 words in 2 days. Just, it come out of me. And it was like, that was when I kind of realized, actually, there's something to be said for planning your book out, because that wouldn't happen. You know, I spent 2 weeks writing 1 chapter, and it's not conducive to a good publishing schedule.
No, I agree with you. But on the flip side, with the book I've been writing at the moment, I planned it more than I planned any other book, and then started writing. And in the first sort of about 20% in, I thought that's not right. That doesn't sit well with me. So I made something happen which has completely affected the rest of the story. So I was like, this scene isn't intense enough. So like flipped it around and put some, and then obviously everything I put there on is just on its side, because it all relies on everything that went before it, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah, I've done that myself, and I remember back in my youthful days, I used to do a lot of martial arts and boxing and things, and there was always a sign in the gym. It was a quote, and I think it might have been Mike Tyson, who said, like, every plan is perfect until you get punched in the face. Yes. Every plan goes to hell, and it's like, yeah, pretty much, because it's a literary equivalent of writing yourself into a corner, isn't it? That's the punch in the face, and you're like, oh God, now what? That didn't work. This plan, and then you fix it, and you're like, oh, hang on, none of that now makes sense. Fine, back to the storyboard. But that's part of the fun, you know. If it's not, to me, if it's not entertaining for you writing it, it's not going to be entertaining for anybody reading it either.
Absolutely.
So you've got to enjoy the process. It's painful enough that if you don't enjoy it, it's tricky one.
That's it. So you were into boxing? Did you say it was MMA or karate? Or?
Yeah, I did. So I started doing boxing. There's a friend of mine. I've known him for 16, 17 years now. And when I started working with him, he's 6'7", so he's a big guy. You don't want to be boxing him, or I don't certainly. Well, it turned out I didn't either. But I'm really 6'4", so he's like, you're the only guy I've met who's remotely my height. But I've always wanted to go boxing. Do you want to try it? So I'm like, yeah, it's great. Why not? So we ended up really enjoying it. So we went from kind of boxing to kickboxing, and then sort of all the different variations, up until, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, when I got just too physically knackered to do anything like that.
What the problem is, mate, you got too good. It was unfair for everyone else. That was
exactly. And just like, we can't compete with that. Just those two guys are just too good.
Yeah.
What actually happened was I got arthritis, nearly broke my back, and just yeah. But in all honesty, that in a way that helps as well, because when I'm writing the fight scenes for my books, it's like, well, I know I've got a rough idea of what's realistic in a fight, and it's not uncommon for me to kind of essentially solo dance around my living room, acting out both sides of a fight scene to see if it'll work. And I'm like, I'll
tell you what, I've got 2 things to say about that. Number one, I've been kickboxing for a couple of years before this. I went for probably 3 or 4 years. I was rubbish at it, like literally the worst kickboxer the world has ever seen. But it was great for writing, because you know the stance, you know sort of the names, jab and hook, and all the various terminology. You know how it feels and those sorts of things, yeah. And secondly, I am in the book I'm writing, there was a scene in which a character had to get off the floor with their hands tied behind their back. And I was like, yesterday, I was like, is that even possible? I don't want to write this and it not be possible. So I went down into my front room and sort of held my hands behind my back and lay on the floor like this, you know, and was there rolling around for a while, trying to work out how long it might take for this character to get back on their feet, you know, from that position.
No, it's definitely, it's not possible if you're nearly 40 and have arthritis in both your knees. Just so you know.
Fortunately, one of my characters
to be fair, getting out of the chair is a little bit tricky nowadays. Never mind untying myself, but that's the thing. Like you say, if you've got any kind of insight into that kind of thing, it does make the novels a lot easier. Like, I mean, you know, I write primarily about hitman. Now, I'm English. I live in England. I've never fired a gun in my life, so. But when I get it right, and people are, oh, you know, yeah, that's exactly how a gun works, and it's like, oh, you must have a good collection. It's like, nope, I've got a really good internet connection and Google. that's where it comes from, you know. But it's nice to have that kind of the the first that your own experiences of like, yeah, this is exactly what it feels like to get punched in the face. That's how it would hit you. That's how you would fall. That's why this would happen. And yeah, I like to think it adds a little bit of realism to to the action scenes. So
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Let's jump over to the comments again quickly and see what people are saying. Steve is being very, very complimentary. He says James is as good as any indie out there. The Adrian Hell books are great, and I would concur with that completely. Brilliant.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I'll send you your money later, mate. Yeah.
Would you recommend with the Adrian Hell books, James, starting with the first one, or is it? Can you read them in any order? Is it?
Yeah. So the first 7 books essentially just chapters of his own life going in chronological order. I did a novella called A Hero of War, which is kind of his origin story.
Oh wow!
But the way that I kind of plug that particular novella is kind of like the Star Wars films. So you can watch Star Wars episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's fine. But if you're of our generation where you grew up with episodes 4, 5, and 6, episode 3, when you see him become Darth Vader, actually is more impactful if you know it's going to happen up front. Because it kind of like, wow, this is how it all came about. And it's kind of the same. It's like Hero of War is good, but if you've read the series first, or some of the series first, and then you go and read that, you're like, oh, that's where he gets those mannerisms from. And I don't know, I think it's better. It's more of a fan service thing, the novella. So yeah, anyone kind of starting new, True Conviction's the place to start.
It's the place to go. I feel the same about mine because I wrote Kathmandu is my debut, but I wrote Koh-Tao as a prequel afterwards, a couple of years afterwards, and I feel like people always say, where should I start? And I think that is the first chronological one, but actually I think it probably is more enjoyable to read having known what comes later.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy for us as well, I think, because we know we've kind of grown that character, so we've got more information to then kind of explain. Whereas if you're writing that in chronological order, it's like, well, if I started when he's 18, I don't know what's going to happen when he's 35, 40, you know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely.
It's such a hard line to tread, that one, isn't it? By each book, that first section of the book, you need to give enough context for a new reader to understand, but not so much that a regular reader is going to sort of.
I already know what it looks like. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You've got to. It's hard appealing. You're essentially trying to please everybody. It's like people who are reading the 7th book. The chances are they've read the other 6. But at the same time, people do just dive in, and you want to kind of try and accommodate everybody. Yeah, definitely.
As a reader myself, I actually quite like starting in the middle of a series because I think you may find the same. When I read books in a similar genre to mine, I read them in a different way. I read them in quite an analytical way to sort of see how someone's done something, to sort of unpick it a little bit more than perhaps I would do if I was reading a completely, if I sit down and read something a bit more literary, I just get absorbed in it and enjoy it. But if I read something close, I'm sort of unpicking it a little bit. And I quite like the middle of the series because by then the writer has established what they're doing. They're in their flow. The characters are a bit more well-formed. They know the form a bit better. And actually, I think you sometimes get a bit more of a concise and comprehensive novel at that stage.
No, absolutely right. And to be honest with you, that's the thing, because I mean, and I suppose any author will say, every author reads a lot, and that's kind of how you improve. And it's like, weirdly, I'm probably one of the few authors I haven't really read a book since I started writing them, because I started analysing them exactly like you said, but it meant that I no longer enjoyed reading. It was like I was studying. And then I also found that I was like, oh, that was really good. So I just copied that idea. I'm like, hang on a minute. I need it to be for me. And I'm not necessarily from the school of thought that you have to read what other people are doing to improve your own, because I mean, I'll openly admit I'm not the best technical writer in the world. I'm not. My editor will tell you that quite happily. However, I consider myself an incredibly talented storyteller.
And that's more important, actually.
Yeah, I know how to tell you a really good story from start to finish, all your twists and turns and blowing stuff up. Whether it's got a semicolon in the right place or not, I pay somebody to tell me that, But because of that, because my focus is on developing the ability to tell a story and not necessarily how to craft words, I find I get more inspiration from watching films, TV shows, video games, things that tell stories in a visual way. Best thing for me to watch, and this, any, aspiring authors out there, if you ever want to learn how to write dialogue, watch The West Wing, the TV show written by Aaron Sorkin. Is a legend at progressing a story through dialogue and not narrative. And I would probably say 80% of my books are characters talking to each other. So, and there's a way of telling the story through somebody else's voice, as opposed to that kind of the Morgan Freeman narrative overlooking everything, because that's what I do. I try and get the inspiration from other sources so that I'm not ruining the experience of enjoying a good read or essentially plagiarizing what somebody else has done.
I totally agree with what you mean. Understand what you mean there, and I think the more I've written, the better I've got at that. And the better I've got at telling showing what a character's like through action and through speech and through what they do, rather than through what goes on in here. And that must be particularly difficult for you writing in that first person perspective, where they do spend a lot of time in their own head, talking about something.
That's the challenge of it. And I like that challenge. Some people say it's limiting because obviously you can only tell the aspect of the story that person sees. Like, I know what all the other people are doing, but I can't tell you because they don't.
That's it. But you must know as a writer that there's someone coming up behind them about to do this.
Well, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it catches you by surprise as well. Like, holy crap, he's got to go. But then that's kind of why I started doing other series as well that are written in the third person and a little bit more traditional, because it allows me to tell a fuller story, which is nice. But I enjoy that element of discovery that the main character has, because he's finding out and figuring it all out, at the same time you are. And that's fun to me, because it's almost like you can't predict what's going to happen. You can't be like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely going to be the bad guy. It's like, well, who knows? You figure it out when he does. And I like that. And I like only telling the story from one perspective, because it allows you to be a little bit biased. You look at things and it turns out, there's a twist in True Conviction in terms of the character's kind of motivations towards the end. And it's like, well, nobody saw that coming because he didn't see that coming. But if you knew the full story, you'd have known that was going to happen at the very beginning, and it wouldn't have been as impactful. So I like that. I like that kind of limited vision that the first person perspective gives you.
Yeah, I didn't see that twist coming at the end of True Conviction. And then when it happened, I was like, oh, of course that's going to happen. It's one of those great twists in writing where it was so inevitable, but yet I didn't see it coming. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. And I like to think that I did it so that it got to the point when that happened, like, hang on a minute. And then you go back and look at everything else, like, oh, yeah, actually, now that I know that happened, all of that makes more sense. And it's like, that's a George Martin technique. That's the Game of Thrones thing, that. But yeah, it was good fun, and that particular twist at the end, that was a surprise to me as well.
Really? So that just
honestly, I just started writing. It was like, oh, fair enough, and then that was it. But it was great, yeah.
And so it went. Let's have a quick look at these comments again. Alison says she sent me a picture of what I'm drinking. My phone's over there. I'll go and have a look at when we finished, Alison. I'm sure it's lovely, whatever it is. She said, Alison says as well, James, I really loved Hard to Kill, the character Roach. So that's one of your newer series.
So thank you very much, Alison. That's the last book that I released. That's the one they released in December.
Oh, cool.
The first in the new series. So yeah, I loved the character of Roach. I had him in my head. Well, I had him on my scrapbook for like 3 or 4 years, and I finally got to the stage kind of creatively where I was able to sort of dedicate a bit of time to him and give him his own run. And yeah, I loved writing that book. It was a really enjoyable kind of story for me to tell. And so absolutely great, yeah.
So was Roach in a previous book then, one of the Adrian Hell novels? And
no, he's a brand new character. His backstory does kind of have ties to the other series, kind of subtly, but not to the point where you have to have read the other stuff for it to make sense. But he's probably my most traditional tale. If I had to describe him, he's probably a slightly angrier and morally diverse Jack Reacher with hints of Jason Bourne thrown in there. but at the same time, he's a completely unique, his own thing, you know. But yeah, I really enjoyed writing that book. It was fun, and I look forward to doing more in the series. So thank you very much, Alison, for checking that out.
And Anne just says she's off to Google your books immediately, so that's always good to hear.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Andrew says that he just got. Oh, Andrew, thank you, by the way, for tuning in live. I know it's a bit difficult for you because it's earlier in the day. I think Andrew's somewhere in the States. I can't remember exactly where. So in the middle of the day for him. If you're having a beer, Andrew, you know, good, well done, thanks. but no, we don't expect you to. He says, I've just got my huge paperback copy of Luke's box set. I'm very excited to continue the series, and Kotal was awesome. There we go. Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Andrew. Yeah, I had all my box set done, James, in a giant paperback, which weighs as much as you'd anticipate for.
Holy moly!
The first 3 books in there. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
I won't put it back up there just yet. Have you got box sets and all that of yours then, of the ones that
I do? Yeah, I've got a couple of box sets out, only digital ones. All my books are available in paperback, but I've not done the paperback box set.
I was thinking about it, and I just thought it's no extra effort, is it, just to run off the file in paperback and put the cover round? It cost the designer about £10 to do it, and I thought, why not? I think it's a great thing to have.
It's what I might look into. I'm actually in the process of going through Ingram Spark, and I'm putting all my books available in hardback and paperback. Yeah. I've never done before.
I need to do.
Yeah, so getting them out in hardback and doing it through Ingram means that you're more widely available as well. Like before, all my print books were only available through Amazon, whereas now, starting with Hard to Kill, actually, that was the first book I did it with. That's available literally everywhere. In the UK, I went into you can go into Waterstones or some of the supermarkets, and you can order it in and it's there, and that's for me that was a bucket list thing. That's like getting the brick and mortar stores just for my own peace of mind. So yeah, that's good, but no paperback box sets as yet.
I agree completely with what you mean, and I do intend to do mine through Ingram Spark as well in that way, because I want to use, is it bookshop.org? The website is bookshop.org. There's a new bookseller website that they've set up that is to support local stores, local indie stores, and you go on there and it's like a platform essentially, and you say where you are and what your local indie store is, and you buy your book via this thing, and it comes from that local store rather than from their central place.
Oh, that's really good.
It's like a cooperative of local independent stores, but through one website.
That's really good. Especially at the moment, like coming out of lockdown as well. It's good if supporting small businesses or buying direct from authors. It's like every little kind of helps, and that's perfect time. So no, good on Ingram for setting that up, definitely.
Yeah, that's it. Have you got a Patreon thing, and you do that sort of stuff as well?
I have. I'll be honest, I don't really do anything with it. It's just kind of there. I think I have a few. I didn't do the thing with all the tiers and things like that. I literally said $1 or more a month, whatever you want to give, minimum of $1, which is like 70 pence. It's a pint of milk. And I said, if you do that every month, you get a free digital copy of every new book I release, which is fair, I think. Some people give more than $1, and I'm incredibly grateful, but I don't really do anything with that. I probably should, but I don't.
It's such a good idea, and it's a great way to. I've not done it myself yet, but do intend to do something like that. I don't know exactly what yet. It's such a great way to support people like you and I, who are just sort of pushing our way through, trying to make it work as an independent author and doing independent things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's nice, and I set up my own kind of online bookstore, so you can buy my books direct from me as well as everyone else, and it's great. And I like the idea of it because, ultimately, it's because I get slightly more money, but it cuts out the middleman. And it's essentially, as an author, you are a small business. So people, and a lot of my readers are very, very happy and willing to buy direct because they understand the benefits. But it's no different to them. The books are the same price. You get the digital books the same way. But every little helps. But it also means that I can run my own promotions for readers and things like that. Because I like my birthday, for example, is American Independence Day. So I always run a promotion on American Independence Day, and I always use the promotion code of Will Smith as the code because of the film Independence Day. Just a little fun, but it means I can sort of say, here's a discount code to get 40% off, fill your boots in my store, and it means I don't have to worry about trying to negotiate for 2 weeks with Amazon and Kobo and Apple and everywhere else. It's like, it just gives you that little bit more freedom, and it's a way for me to connect more with my readers as well, which is great.
It is. And as I said to you before, that's exactly the reason why I love doing things like this. It's connecting with yourself, James, and everyone who's watching this as well. And because as an author, it's not just me sat in a room, and it's not just you sat in a room making up stuff, because that story only becomes alive. That story only has life when someone reads and enjoys it. Otherwise, it's just me typing. It's just digital things on a screen, isn't it? It's nothing without someone enjoying that. So you guys and girls reading it actually bring that to life, and that's really important and really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, that there is more to it. I mean, obviously, it's like you say, it's not just us. I mean, we have teams sort of behind us as well. We have editors and designers that put it all out there. But you know, it sounds really corny, but I do it for the readers, because I know what all the stories are. You know, I'm already entertained, but it's like, I'm doing it because I want to entertain people. And I'm not an actor or a singer, so this was my only option. But you know, it's I see. My thing is, I ain't writing Pride and Prejudice. I'm not making any allusions to that. I'm writing escapism, because the real world sucks. So let's have some fun. Let's take yourself away from that for a few hours and just enjoy something. No, it's not. It's kind of realistic-ish, but there's an element of suspending disbelief and so on. And it's like, it's just fun, and that's what I want to do. I want to entertain people, and people, readers. Even now, we're talking 8 years on nearly, and I still get emails off readers going, "I've just read your book. I'm sat on the beach. It's been great. It's just took me away." Or there's been people who are, they're ill in hospital, and they're like, "Reading your books helped me get through post recovery from surgery or something." It's like, geez, that's why I do it. To help people and entertain people. 100%. So it is nice when you know that you're helping and making a difference with what you love doing.
And you never expect that, do you? I've had people email me saying similar things. It's getting me through this difficult time. It's helped me do this and this, and it's absolutely incredible to think that something that I created has had that effect on another person. That's really humbling. Yeah. Do you think though that your books, although you say they're just a bit fun, I think in a way you're being a little bit like self-deprecating there, because actually they're more than a little bit of fun. They have a point to them. Good wins over evil. The good guy, although he's an assassin, he's got a moral compass, hasn't he? He's got some moral compass within him, and some way that he's likable and those sorts of things. Yeah,
I mean, the first book, I didn't know what I was doing as a writer or as a publisher or as anything like that. I just kind of felt I had a story in me to get out. It's kind of that old cliche. And it had been on sale for sort of 2 or 3 months. I was writing the second one at the time. And somebody emailed me and they're like, "I really love how you've kind of explored the psychology behind this, this and this." And I'm like, did I? I did not think about it that much. But then actually it's like, well, actually I probably did. There probably is that kind of level to it. And certainly now sort of, I've developed and I'm older and wiser, arguably, and I like to think I've improved as a storyteller. I like to think there are elements to my books that, whilst you can just enjoy them and switch off, and it's like watching Die Hard for 2 hours. It doesn't pluck on your moral heartstrings or anything, but at the same time, I like the books to be asking questions. I like the readers to think, well, what would I do in that situation if I was faced with putting a gun to the head of the big bad guy? Would I just pull the trigger because the guy deserved it, or would I hand him over because I'm the assassin? And I like that. And my latest book, actually, that's due out in a few weeks, that's probably, I said this to my editor. I said, I think it's probably the most intelligent book I've ever written, because there's more political themes involved, and it actually, not intentionally, but it kind of draws on real world sort of things that are going on at the moment, like things surrounding, the talk of cancel culture and things like that. And it actually draws on things and pulls that into the fictional world. And it's good. I suppose it's our way of getting our kind of social opinions out there in a way that's justified without being told off because it's somebody else doing it, really, Exactly.
I don't think also you can write in a bubble. You aren't. You are in the world in which you are writing at the point at which you're writing. You can't read a novel from you know, from the 40s or 50s without it have been influenced by either of the world wars. You can't read a novel from the late 1800s without it have been influenced by the Victorian sort of period. You know, all these things have an effect, and at some point in the future people will look back at books of this time and they'll think, oh, that's because of this, you know, that's because of this, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that goes even to, you know, people sort of say like, is there any of yourself in your character, you know, where and it's like, well, I hope not, because my character's an assassin.
He's a killer. Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I challenge it. No one will honestly say, you know, you've not had those thoughts in your head that kind of make you question yourself a little bit. And it's like, you know, like you see a little kitten and you're like, how far could I kick that? Be honest. Be honest. You know, you ask yourself the question. You don't say it out loud, but you do. And there's always that element of people. And it's like, that does go into the books. It's kind of, I'll tell you what it's like. You know, the actor Dwayne Johnson, obviously he's in everything at the moment. When I was younger, I used to watch the wrestling when he was in it, and he was The Rock. And I remember
The Rock and the eyebrow.
Yeah, and I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said people connected with him in that situation because his character is basically him, but with the volume turned up to 11. Yeah. And it's like, actually, yeah, you just kind of exaggerating parts of your personality and sort of by extension parts of your surroundings and the world around you at the time, and that's what makes the characters, but that's what makes them realistic, because it is basically just a normal guy. He's just got the volume turned up to 11 and arguable morals, but it's basically you're trying to make them a believable human being, and to do that, you draw on yourself and you draw on the world around you.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That's exactly it. Alison's just asked. In fact, we'll just do a couple of comments whilst we're talking about it. Andrew says, no beer for me today, as Luke says it's still early morning. I hope you're enjoying your coffee, Andrew, or whatever you drink in the early morning times. Alison says, really interesting question. Both of us, which of your characters would you want to have a beer with and why?
That is a good question.
That is a good question.
I'll let you go first.
I was going to say, do you want me? So obviously, Alison, I'd like to have a beer with Leo and Alyssa, who are my two main characters, but I'm not going to say them because I think that's too obvious. Because, in fact, a friend of mine read my books for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and she said, your characters just drink beer all the time. Because they travel a lot, and as you'll know, going on holiday, etc., although they're not there for holiday, that'd be a really boring story, does often involve going to a couple of bars and eating some local food and having a local beer, and they do that as well. Of course they should. Anyway, I think that would be quite good fun. But Alison, I think I really like, and we will see her again, actually, the character in New York, Nikki Zadid. You've read New York, you know about it. She's this... she's a private detective in New York, but she's a young Muslim woman, probably, well, not that young, probably similar age to us, to be fair, James, sort of late 30s, early 40s. But because she wears a hijab, people assume she's quite shy and retiring and a little bit meek, but actually she's real kick-ass, and she's always putting people in their place, always doing stuff she should, you know, real sort of duality in that character. But also, if she's on the trail of someone, she's quite happy to slip into that wallflower sort of attitude. So I think having a beer with her and hearing some of her opinions about the city and the world would be a very interesting one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. For me, I mean, it's weird because I've actually had readers email me and say, I'd really like to sit down and have a beer with Adrian Hell, because I feel like I should hate him, but I don't. And I just want to have a talk to him and get his mindset. And yeah, I would. But to be honest, I mean, again, like kind of taking your approach, like that's probably a bit too obvious. There's one about the series, Global Tech, which is based around kind of an elite unit working for a military contractor. One of the characters in there is called Ray Collins. And he's Irish. He's former kind of special forces. He's hard as nails. But he's an Irish guy. He's a bit of a woman. Well, he's a lot of a womanizer, sort of a charmer. Think like Colin Farrell in the late 90s. That kind of approach. And he's quite cheeky, and he always has a lot of banter with people. And I think he'd be a great night out. You know, you just go and start having a few beers. He'd be the one that comes over with the first tequila slammers of the evening. You're like, that's the guy, you know. And I think he'd be very entertaining to have a night out with. I think, definitely.
Mate,
So,
just a night out in general would be very entertaining right
now,
now.
I've just thought about it on my own. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Getting the shakes like.
No, I absolutely agree with you. Well said. Yes, Steve Moore has jumped in the comments again. I hope that answered your question, by the way, Alison. I think you got a very detailed answer from us both there. Steve says it's 9:42 for him. Yes, of course I'm drinking. He's warming up for the footy in a couple of hours. So there we go. I'm not a football fan, so I wouldn't know what football's on or anything like that. So do you think you'll always write in the thriller genre then? Or have you got something else, that any other plans for the future that might push the boundaries of that into some other space, you know, anything futuristic, dystopian, or would you go historical, you know, back to the 80s or 70s or whatever?
I wouldn't write anything that I couldn't just make up. If it requires genuine research, I'm not I'm not about that at all. But no, I mean, the thing is, the 3 thriller series that I write, they're all kind of interconnected. Think kind of like the Marvel universe. So they all cross over and interlink and things. So there's a lot that I still need to do with that. I literally have an outline for the next 17 books.
Wow.
I've had to plan it that far in advance. It's mental. That said,
why have you had to plan it that far in advance? Sorry, if I
if you think like the Marvel film, you look at something like Avengers Endgame. It's like, well, Avengers Endgame is the culmination of 23 films that came before it. Gosh. Now, all those individual series, or your Captain Americas, your Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, all of those had to know where they were going to end up so that they could craft the individual stories and the crossovers. Mine's kind of the same. So I have to always have one eye on what's coming up so that I'm not tripping myself up and I know when to drop the hints here and there. Like, I'm setting things up now that I'm not going to write for another 5 years. But I love that. I love that process. That said, a couple of years ago, I did write a young adult novel. Simply because, going back to what I said about the first person, it's like, well, it's more suited to that. And it was kind of around the time when the Harry Potter movies had finished, Hunger Games, all of that had gone. I'm like, there's nothing new anymore in that genre. I'll be the next J.K. Rowling. It's fine. So I wrote a young adult novel. Now, from a marketing perspective, to be all boring and publishing about it, nobody bought it because my audience is made up of thriller fans in their 40s and 50s. So it was more kind of just to get it out of my head so it stopped annoying me. But actually, the people that did write it, and certainly the younger people, they really enjoyed it, because it's basically Adrian Hell, but with magic and at the age of 16. So he doesn't swear as much and there's no guns. But other than that, it's basically the same kind of thing, because that's how I know to tell stories. And it did have some appeal, I think. And I kind of set that up to be either a trilogy or 4 books. At some point, I'll always write fillers. It's my bread and butter. But at some point, I'll probably feel like I'll take 6 months off that, just recharge the batteries, and do something a bit different. So yeah, I'll probably at some point go back to the young adult series just to finish it off. But I did enjoy it, actually. It was nice, because I'd get to, like you say, you know, you write yourselves into those situations, what they're doing now. And like, normally I would just shoot the guy, but I can't because he's 16 and a wizard. So it needs to be something slightly different. But it was nice. You know, it's kind of exercise, flexing the muscles and trying something new. So
the thing I really like about that, and I do this as well, is with what we do, there are so many different skills which are quite different to one another. So if you get a bit fed up of just like putting new words on the page because you've done it for a month every day of the week, and you just run out of energy with that, you just flip over and you do something else. So you might plan the next novel in the series, or you might go and redo the website or something. You know, you can always be sort of cycling around through the tasks of creativity, which is quite an empowering way for your business to sort of work, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I did. I mean, I tell you how the young adult thing came about. I kind of hit a bit of a roadblock in terms of not necessarily writer's block, but just kind of motivation for what I was doing. And I'd read about a technique where you basically write your character introducing themselves to you. So I did, and I ended up writing like 2,500 words in about 20 minutes. It was crazy. It was just this 16-year-old kid introducing himself to me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm Dominic. I've just found out I'm a wizard, and all this stuff's going on. Like, what the hell, kind of thing." And I was like, "This guy's awesome." And then, before anyway, I had the makings of what would become Lost Souls, which was the first book in the young adult series eventually. Well, that was really good. And yeah, like I say, it's something. It's just taking yourself out of your normal situation, just something a bit different. But I really enjoyed that process of just getting to know somebody else, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and the characters in the book, in books in general, are the most important thing. It doesn't. I mean, I'm all about the settings because I love taking my readers to exciting places. But if I didn't have good characters and a good, good likable things, believable traits and things like that, the settings would be irrelevant. Like the character is everything in writing, isn't it? That getting that character believable, getting them with the right amount of threat and challenge and all those sorts of things.
Yeah,
it's a hard one to push, though. It's a hard balance to get, I think.
No, it is. You're right. And I mean, I've kind of spoken with authors, and I've been fortunate enough throughout kind of my time to actually mentor some authors now that I have the experience, which I love doing. And the first piece of advice I always give is the characters are key, because it doesn't. You could craft the greatest story ever told, but if everybody thinks your main character's a douche, they're not going to care. They're not going to care how good your story is. The characters are key. Make the characters likable, believable, relatable, and people look and read whatever they do. But it's the character that's key. And that's why, I mean, I'll be honest, I used to read a lot of the Lee Child books, the Jack Reacher series. And obviously, I mean, no one can fault the guy. He's been groundbreaking for 20 years now. However, for me personally, as a reader, I got maybe 16, 17 in. And I was like, hang on a minute, this guy's not even got so much as a bruise in like 15 years. Obviously, he's going to be fine. What's the point? Because it just felt like the same thing. And that's why I like Die Hard, because Bruce Willis got the living hell kicked out of him for 2 hours. He still saved the day, but he was human. He got beat up, that scene when he's picking the glass out of his feet. It's like, that guy had a bad day. And I like that. And,
I'm a Die Hard fan.
Yeah, it's the greatest Christmas movie anyway, and I will fight anybody who says it's not.
Agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely drew on the character of John McClane when creating Adrian Hell, because, I mean, for the most part, he will, save the day in his own unique way, but he goes through hell to do it. Like, he gets put through the ringer. I'm not very nice to him at all.
But also, the thing that's likable about him is he goes through the ringer to save, as you say, to save the day. But that's off the dime. He's not paid for that. He's always, in the one I read, and I imagine it's similar through the series. Is he has a job to do, and he discovers that job. He goes to that job, and then realizes it's not quite as simple as it's meant to be, and he's got to go all in to do something bigger, which he's not being paid for. He's just doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, but that's it. And I like that, because it's kind of like, I don't know, like America as a country is it's pretty much the only superpower left. So when small, places in other parts of the world are having problems and stuff, America send people to help. That's the cool thing. And they do it because they can. Because it's their responsibility, because they're the only ones that can do the job. So of course they should, And I like to kind of try and apply that logic to Adrian, because he's a trained professional killer, very good at what he does, has very, very little issue with shooting anybody who he thinks kind of deserves it. But when he finds the situation kind of go a bit wrong, it's like, oh, I should just run from this because it's way more than I'm being paid to handle. But I can't help because of the skill set I have. Yeah. I'm in a unique position to fix that. I have to, because I've got to look myself in the mirror at the end of the day. And it's that mindset that I think makes readers think, would I do that? Because I know it's the right thing to do, but could I? And that's the kind of the relation there with the reader.
Yeah.
I want him to be realistic. I want him to be human, It's not easy.
This is it. This is it. And actually, that's a really important sort of message in that, in that story, in that it is saying, you need to do what's right. There's a real moral sort of message in there, I think, and that's really important in the books that both of us write. Mine are the same. The good guy wins, and as far as I know, they're going to continue winning. But I like to make it so they win mostly. But there's always a bit that they don't quite win,
Exactly. And every now and then you like to throw in an Empire Strikes Back, where
yes.
is the bad guy. So I'm like, hang on a minute. And then you're like, when's the sequel? I mean, he's fine. But it's nice because, again, you want it to be, whilst it is fiction and whilst it is obviously meant to be entertainment, you want them to be believable. And in the real world, the good guy doesn't always win. Or the good guy wins, but he loses something along the way. Or he might be limping to the finish line with his arm hanging off or something, but he's done it, and that's the thing. It's that the conviction of sticking by what is right. And I remember reading it somewhere, like a character in a comic or something I read, and it's like, you've got a choice. You can either do what's easy or what's right. But those two are very rarely the same thing. And it's like, I kind of apply that to the books because I like my characters to have a kind of a morally grey area, because I think most people do anyway. But it's like, they could fix that problem or they could fix themselves. And it's like, you can't do both, but I like to think they would go for the greater good,
100%. James, it's been absolutely fantastic to have this conversation with you. Well, I think we could go on talking for hours, to be honest. It's always the way about books. So where should people go to buy your books then? Because you sell them on all platforms, but you'd prefer them to go to your website, I assume?
Yeah, well, I have my, jamespsumner.com.
I'll put that on the screen now.
Thank you very much. So, I sell digital books directly. But what I also do on the product pages is I say, some people don't always want to buy direct. They like to just stick with what they know. Absolutely fine. So on the product page for every book of mine on my store are links to Amazon, Kobo, everywhere else. So it's all in one place. You can buy it where you want, it's fine. But my website, jamespsumner.com, is sort of the best place for you to start to look at everything I've done and pick yourself up a copy if you want to. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. James, you stop around and we'll have a quick chat after we've finished broadcasting.
Yeah,
everyone else listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for another Books and Beer. It's been amazing. I've really have been enjoying doing these. I will be back for another one next Wednesday. I'm not quite sure who's going to be joining me yet, so hold your breath on that one. I'll put it on my Facebook group though before the night, so you'll know. So it might be with someone else. I may just do another solo one because I quite like doing the solo ones as well because I get to talk more about my writing and all the things I'm up to. So that's great too. But make sure you're here 5 o'clock next Wednesday and we'll have another chat then. Make sure you check out James's website. There it is. I always get this wrong. There it is. In the meantime, thanks so much. See you again.